Well, I'm gonna start this thing, which I would like to call Coffee with Kyle. And it's just me kind of going over my last week or last major experience within Soul Chocolate and kind of getting the pulse of what's going on within our shop, what's going on in the world of chocolate, and what's just maybe going on in my head in general. So last week, I had the pleasure of spending some time in Colombia. And this is the second time that I've been there now, work focused, and it's wonderful. I got to go to Bogota and then a little more south to like a cacao growing area known as, it's in Huila, it's near Neiva. The area I went to specifically was Garzon and Gigante or Gigante. And it was a whirlwind. I left on the Thursday and I ended up getting back on the Wednesday. And essentially it's like about 5 days of travel. You know, you fly there, your day's gone. The next day I flew out to Neiva and I spent the day with the team at Osito Coffee. And these guys are the team that we've been buying our Colombian cacao from for the last couple of years actually. So when I mentioned I was going to Colombia, they were like, hey, why don't you just come down? Like, it's an hour flight. We'd love to show you around and you can meet some of the farmers that you've been buying from over the years. So how do you say no to that? And this trip was a little different for me. I found years back, it felt almost like this promotional tool where you'd go down and you'd take all these photos and videos of the farm and farmers and opening pods. And it's not to say that I didn't do that, but it almost felt like, looking back on it, that I was using them as like this like showcase, or I don't know how else to word it, but I feel a little more conflicted about it now, especially with like the last year of chocolate making and the price of cacao going very, very high and then now very low. So when I met with these farmers, it was really interesting to hear their take on the last 12 months. Like, if we were buying 12 months time and the price of cacao is, you know, at 12,000 a ton, where for comparison's sake, right now it's sitting around 3,000 a ton. The growers were pumped, you know, like they finally were able to have enough money in their pockets to afford things and then think more about the future. So when asking about how they're approaching the upcoming harvest or current like smaller harvest season, they were really deflated. And it was the common thread amongst the three farmers that I met up with. And again, I'm conflicted about that because like I think it becomes this like balancing act where when the price of cacao went up so high, all these farmers are super excited, and then on the other side of it is chocolate makers like myself being like, I don't know how I'm gonna survive. And then it swings the other direction, and then we're pumped because the price is so low that like now we have margin, but then the farmers are really, really having a hard time. So it's conflicting. I do feel like there is this middle ground. And I guess to expand a little bit on the farm perspective and the grower perspective is that the price is so low right now where they're relying on not only different crops, but like a totally different market altogether. And by that I mean a lot of the farms, actually the three that I went to, they all had ponds that they dug out and they were raising fish for the local and export market because the value of the fish was better than growing cacao. And you know, like growing cacao, it's not like they can just be like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm gonna tear this all out and start something new. Because whatever you do, like it's still generating some income. So I think the common thread there was like to diversify. But again, it's hard to take that as like somewhat of a feedback, you know? Because like I see all these chocolate makers being so pumped and being like, oh, have you seen the price of cacao? And they're sending me these like the futures market and the stock, and you can see the price dipping and they're celebrating. But I feel like they're so far removed, and not all, but some are so far removed from the human element of this supply chain. It's pretty disheartening. So I feel like there needs to be some type of solution where it's a retraction from basing it off of this futures market or as a commodity, as most of us seem to do, and weighted a little differently, because if not, I don't know how chocolate will be chocolate in 20, 30 years time. I feel like new generation of farmers will be like, I'm not getting into that, there's no money there. So that was a pretty big learning for myself there. Let me just pause and enjoy some of this. And I guess to segue into this coffee, while I was visiting the producers in Garzon, there's a coffee shop actually right beside the Ocido Coffee offices, and it's Diego Campos, and he was, I believe, the 2021 World Barista Champion. So you're in this, like, you know, not a huge city by any means, and I'm sitting and drinking coffee that is like grown by, you know, I believe Diego and the family, and then made there on like a World Barista level. And it was the best coffee I had in my life. You know, it's so unassuming, and yeah, it's remarkable there of like the quality that is there and the drive people have to make something exceptional, even if the price doesn't warrant it. So again, I feel like I'm unpacking here, and maybe this is almost like you are my therapist. So thank you. But the coffee I brought back as well is from Diego, and it's outstanding. So it's really nice to be able to enjoy it while I talk about my time in Colombia. And I guess lastly, like the reason why I actually went to Colombia, I was invited down. It's called Pro Colombia, and it's, I believe, in a government initiative where they invite like manufacturers across the board. So not only in the chocolate world, you see coffee, like different agriculture, like finished good exporters or importers around the world. And the idea is to like bolster their trade. So I was one of the chocolate makers from around the world that was able to go. So yeah, like they put me up, and it was very wonderful in that regard. And I had one day after I came back from visiting in Garzon that I spent in Bogota, and the time there was essentially business meetings. Like you're in a large conference room. There are probably, you know, another 100 or 200 people like myself meeting with a whole bunch of producers. And again, my take on it was like these producers are just so, like this is their chance at, you know, like a new export. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of them are already doing it and doing very well, but like that's how I wanted to go in with this, like carrying some type of weight behind it. I didn't want to just be like, oh yeah, sweet, I got a free flight here and now I can chill out. Like these people are putting in their time and energy in hopes that I will like consider their product for our chocolate. So like I was very receptive and took the time to meet with as many as I could. And I think in the course of 8 hours, I had 12 different meetings. So it was very productive. You get to taste a lot of cacao, which is wonderful as well. And you get to talk with a lot of very passionate people, which is very inspiring. And you know, you come back and you think of these other cool ideas. So I have a few different products that I was given to sample, and we will be sampling. I believe it's called Dorigen. These guys are into just growing cacao and exporting it. They also do coffee. So they gave me 3 different samples from 3 different producing regions. So next week, we're gonna make these into chocolate. This gentleman here, Berdez, if I'm saying it wrong, I do apologize. He is focusing more on pre-processing cacao. So not as like a raw ingredient like this, 100% cocoa liquor. And on that note, like cocoa liquor, if I say it, it's just basically purely refined, roasted and ground cacao. That's essentially what it is, almost in like a paste. So we use some of this for a few of our like private label accounts that we work with. Not there specifically, but it's nice to, again, for me, diversify supply chain in the event that things go crazy. So this is really nice. He has a huge farm, actually. I think it was like 300 hectares. One of the largest ones that I've heard of. I feel like most farmers are usually around, I don't know, 3 or 4 hectares, somewhere in there. So maybe like 8 acres, if depending on how you speak. The most remarkable cacao I tried, Maki cacao, if I'm saying it right again. Super passionate woman. She made some of the best chocolate that I was able to try there. I believe she's an agronomist, and she works with a lot of the farmers to build up their fermentation protocols, because cacao is fermented, and if you don't do it right, your product is really terrible. And I did taste a lot of really hard to enjoy cacao while I was there, so that's challenging. But she has done something wonderful. She makes her own chocolate, as I had mentioned. She also does cacao liquor, so the 100%, and then cocoa butter. But even just the smell of this, it's incredible, and the taste. So I'd probably spend an extra like 30 minutes just chatting with her, because it was absolutely incredible. Yeah, so overall, like my last week, I was very grateful to be there. I met a lot of incredible people, and I came back very inspired, but there's this, not weight in my mind, but like I'm thinking of ways like there has to be a greater solution than just paying a little premium above the commodity market. like some type of stability I feel like is missing. And I know there are companies that are doing it. I'm not discrediting or trying to say that I'm this innovative one, because I'm not. But I feel like as a whole, the market feels a little broken, and it is in the favor of those big chocolate makers that exist, because when prices are like this, they'll capitalize on it for 18 months or whatever it is, lock in some really strong rates and get more margins for their publicly traded companies. But I think like if companies like ourselves are able to come up with a solution that is a more stable price point, there's a lot of like sunshine on the horizon, I think, for producers out there, because quite honestly, it feels a little grim at the moment. So anyways, that's my take. I'm actually off to Peru on Monday, and it's a similar kind of trip down there for 5 days. And it'll be interesting to get the pulse of the producers there as well, and see if this is a common thread, and if there's something that we as chocolate makers and manufacturers can do to make it a little bit better. So anyways, I should probably finish this coffee. It's getting a bit cold. I look forward to chatting with you guys next week.